intelligence, beauty, and nobility are only a few qualities that can introduce this extraordinary woman. She was praised for her generosity, tolerance, and her actions were heartwarming. Her name was Safiyyah Bint Hunayy. Join us for another installation in this extraordinary series Heroines of Islam, hosted by Laila Nasheeba, every Monday and Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on Sunnahfollowers.
Okay, inshallah, we can go ahead and get started. Let me see if everybody's here. Okay, you guys are there? Alhamdulillah. Oh, thank you, Brother Adam. Brother Adam offered me a cup of coffee. Alhamdulillah. May Allah bless you, because I sure could use that cup of coffee right about now. Alhamdulillah. Okay, let's get started. In alhamdulillah wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. Welcome, everyone, to our series entitled Heroines of Islam. This is our series, Heroines of Islam. And before I get started, can someone do me one small favor so that I don't have to open up another screen? Can someone join Facebook and tell me if you guys see my stream? Because I've been informed, you know, we live in this Zionist world. I hope you guys don't get it twisted. YouTube, Facebook, all these social platforms are owned by Zionists. And I was informed that the Zionists are blocking my lectures. They're blocking me. They don't want me to put certain things out. So can somebody check on Facebook and see if I am streaming? And let me know before I start.
You are.
Okay, good. Because I did contact them and tell them I got some connections too. And being that this is Os Estados Unidos, America, I have the freedom to speak. And I informed them if they block anything of mine, they can expect a civil lawsuit. And they can expect a whole bunch of support that they don't want right about now. So they told me, okay, we won't block. So, you know, one thing about America, when they violate your civil rights, you threaten them with a lawsuit. Oh, they'll back up. So I am now. Okay, good. Because they have sent me some garbage about my videos will be blocked. Oh, really? Try it. I got connections too. Okay. All right. So inshallah, alhamdulillah, we're streaming now. Okay, yeah. The brothers here on Twitch said, let them try to block Twitch. No, they won't block Twitch. But just so you guys know, don't get it twisted. YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, all of these social platforms are owned by Zionists. Like the brother Yusuf was telling us in his lecture last week, America's always been a Zionist country. That's why it's Judeo-Christian. Judeo-Christian means the religion are the mostly predominantly Christians, but everything is run by the Zionist Jews. So we have to be careful. They own everything. CNN is Zionist. Fox News, Zionist. Spectrum, Zionist. You guys would be surprised. We have a bunch of Zionists, non-religious Jews. Hollywood, Zionists. My God, and it's so much filth that goes on. These people don't believe in Allah. They don't believe in no religion at all, but they want to establish a Zionist world of no religion. Just simply them running it the way they want to run it with their own laws, their own rules, their own guidelines. So don't get it twisted. Okay, so, but if you're living here in America and you find that you're being blocked and all of that stuff, you know, this Their constitution has not changed and won't change. You have the right and you can sue, and they don't like lawsuits. Money. How do you deal with the Zionists? You come at their pockets. You come at their pockets with a open shut case of discrimination. Oh, they'll back down because that's millions of bucks that they don't want to pay out. Okay, good job. So let me know if y'all ever see that I'm blocked, okay? All right, because I love to file lawsuits. I haven't filed one in 2 years since I retired. I used to do them all the time when I was working. Boy, I miss that. I love to fight like that. I miss that. Okay, wait, before we start too, I got this brother Adam asking me a question. I'm going to answer this question before I go into this beautiful lecture today. How will Allah erase the Quran from the earth? Okay, when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam talks about how the Quran will disappear, this hadith is authentic, it's in Bukhari and Muslim. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the Quran will disappear in one night. What does that mean? That doesn't mean that the Quran will vanish. It will disintegrate. The Prophet said it will disappear from the heart of man. We won't know it anymore. It will be of no value. And that's not happening now. That's one of the greater signs of the last hour, but that will happen after the war. That will happen after the war against Islam. And this is what Facebook and YouTube don't want me to talk about. This is what has the Zionists all up in uproar over with me personally. But like I told them, I got connections too. You want to play that? I'll get on the phone call and make some calls to some senators that I have connections with, being who I used to be with the union. So that made them sit on down. Okay? Well, the Quran will disappear from the heart of man, but this will be after the war. Like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, there will be so much suffering. Because when that war against Islam is declared through the United Nations, every part of this earth will experience it. It just won't be Palestine. That war will be here in America. It'll be in Europe. It'll be everywhere. And it will be so much suffering that the people will lose hope. They will lose hope. They will no longer believe in Allah. And that's what the Zionists want. Remember, the Zionists are people who were Jewish by birth, but they're not Jewish in belief. They don't believe in no religion. They just were Jewish born. And that's what they want. They want to cause so much pain, so much suffering that you forget about Allah, that you end up believing that there is no God. And that's paving the way for the Antichrist. So that way, when Dajjal comes, it's easy. The people will think he is Allah. The prophet said they won't think that the Dajjal is a prophet. They'll think he's Allah, because Allah will give him 4 miracles that will cause the people to think that and believe that. And because of all the pain, the suffering that the world had incurred up to that point, they lost hope. They abandoned the Quran. They've been abandoned the Sunnah. The Sunnah became abandoned before the war, which is what the days that we're in now. Most Muslims today are not following the Sunnah. Most Muslims today don't even know the Sunnah. Most Muslims today don't even know about the Prophet or his wives and stuff. Okay? So we already abandoned the Sunnah. Okay, so the abandonment of the Quran, it will disappear. You'll go to sleep at night and wake up, it's gone. That's when the war happens. So we haven't gotten there yet. We're at the part where the Sunnah has been abandoned. And the same way, it's hard to find Muslims today that know the Sunnah. That's how it will be. You won't hear people quoting what Allah said. when the Quran disappears. They'll be quoting what their leaders said, what Israel said, what Sweden said, what the President Biden said. Just like how will the Sunnah disappear? Instead of us saying what the Prophet said, we're saying fatwas, what Sheikh so-and-so said, what Imam so-and-so said. Does everybody understand? So that's how it disappears. And again, I want everyone to understand, Allah tells us things in the Quran. But if you want to know the meaning of them, you have to learn the hadith. The Prophet Muhammad explained that this hadith is in Sahih Bukhari, and he explained this in detail. The companions asked, how will the Quran disappear? And he detailed it. It will be done left their hearts. They have no belief in it anymore. They have no faith because of all the suffering. We can't handle our trials. We can't handle the qadr of Allah. Like Mukhtar told y'all in his lecture today, none of us, there's nothing that any of us can do to change what's happening in that part of the world because this was already written to be. But what the Prophet did was tell us how it would be. Instead of us learning this stuff, we were too caught up in fatwa. The Prophet Muhammad told us step by step, step by step, step by step what would happen. Okay? But we don't know what he said. We don't know the hadiths. We just read the Quran and take watered down interpretations of it from fatwas instead of what the Prophet said. I'm telling you what he said. Okay? And that's it. Okay, so it's going to happen. But like the Prophet said, it's when this stuff happens, when you live to see these things, when you live to see my sunnah abandoned and replaced with fatwa, that's where we are. When you live to see homosexuality become the norm, when you live to see people make music lawful, that's where we are. When you live to see the people make things unlawful that Allah made lawful and vice versa, that's where we are. He said the only thing that will get the people through all of this is their faith. Your true belief in la ilaha illallah. He said, don't just say you believe it, but be firm in it. Because that's what will cause you to get through it and be on the right side of the war. Because he said most people will be on the wrong side. There'll only be a handful of Muslims on the right side. This is all detailed in Bukhari and Muslim. All right. So, that's the power of supplication too. The Prophet said, make dua. Make dua for yourself, asking Allah to make you be amongst the righteous, make you be on the right path. Oh Allah, strengthen my faith in you. Oh Allah, strengthen my belief in you. Oh Allah, strengthen my practice. Those are the supplications we should be making. Oh Allah, give me the ability to handle and accept whatever you have decreed to be. That's the supplications we should be making. Those people in Palestine, it's sad what's going on, but they're handling it because they're there. Their faith is there. Their iman is where yours is not. That's why I tell you, it ain't about pity. And they will tell you, we don't need your pity. All we need is your dua. If you talk to the Palestinians over there, and I talk to them, I got some on my website, they'll tell you all we need is your dua. We don't want your pity. We don't need your pity, your sympathy, because we got the faith. We're ready. They'll tell you we're ready to go out. La ilaha illallah. We're ready. Are you ready? Are the rest of you Muslims ready? Are you there where they are? No. Okay? So you need to pray for yourself, Muslims. Okay. All right. So that's the only question I'm going to answer right now. Let's get to the lecture, because again, our iman is the only thing that's going to get us through these hard times. And there's nothing that we are facing today that our prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions have not already faced. There is nothing that we are faced with today that they have not already demonstrated through their loyalty and their allegiance to Allah, the prophet, and each other, how we can get through it. And that's why this class, I'm trying to teach you sisters and brothers too, but primarily you sisters, that the greatest role model that any of us have as a woman as to how to be strong and resolute during hard times are those wives of the prophet, because they were the mothers. They are the mothers of the believers. They're the best women created. And we've been doing a story of Safiyyah radiallahu anha, and we're going to end her story today. And I'm telling you, of all the wives of the prophet, she was the strongest of all. Why? Because they never accepted her. She never was accepted. Before the prophet died, his last words before he died were to admonish people about how they treated her. And even after his death, they treated her even worse, because he was the one that protected her. When she married the prophet, she was only with him for a few years. But during those few years, she stayed under his wing of protection. Those hadiths that you brothers read, the hadith that you asked me about yesterday, the hadith about how the prophet made rounds with all his wives in one night. That hadith is authentic. It's Bukhari. It's from Anas. But what you brothers don't understand is Aisha said, yes, this is true. She said, but Anas, you were a boy. When he made rounds, he visited with us all. He sat with us all. He checked with us. But he never had sex with any of us unless it was our night. Again, Aisha had to check it, because Anas was a young boy saying what he saw. He knew that every night the prophet would go and visit each wife after Asr. After Asr, the prophet would make rounds and go to every wife's house, knock on her door, go inside and stay for a short time, and then come out. Then he'd go to the next house, knock on her door, spend a short time with her, and go out. And he would only have one ghusl. So being a young boy, that's what Anas saw. But Aisha corrected him. This is also in Bukhari. She said the prophet made rounds and checked on us every night after Asr, but he never had sexual relations with any of those wives unless it was that woman's night. That's why he only had one ghusl, because you know the prophet was clean. As Aisha and all the other wives say, he always took a ghusl after relations. So she had to let him be known he wasn't having sex. He was checking on us to see how we were, if we needed anything. And as Aisha told us, one of the number one reasons why he did it was because of Safiyyah. Because when he married her, Aisha admits we treated her badly. Safiyyah was never trusted. She was never accepted by any of the Arabs because she was Jewish. So rather than show favoritism to her, The prophet made it a habit to check on every wife, and he would spit so he could sit with Safiyyah during her turn and ask her, are you okay? What have they done to you? What trouble has Aisha brought your way today? Who bothered you? Who called you a Jew today? And then he would admonish whoever it was. The prophet would admonish whoever it was that did this to her, that did anything to her. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. Let me put the PowerPoint up. So again, that's how the hadith, how has the hadith become abandoned? People don't know the meaning of them. That's how the Quran will disappear. Just like the hadiths have disappeared, people don't know them. The same with the Quran. After the war starts, people will be quoting verses of the Quran and won't know what they are and won't believe in them. Okay? The same way when I tell y'all these hadiths, and all of my hadiths are from Bukhari and Muslim that I present to you in this class, because Laila knows how to cover herself against the scandal mongers. And the truth people of knowledge, they know that the meaning I'm giving you is accurate. The true people's knowledge, the true scholars know this is accurate, and they'll have my back. So I'm sticking to Bukhari and Muslim, what ain't questionable. Okay? But a lot of you don't know this stuff. All right, so let's put the PowerPoint up on the screen. Okay. So this will be the final session. I meant to bring some water in here, and I didn't for my throat, but I didn't. This will be the final session on the story of Safiyyah Bint Hunayy, radiallahu anha. We talked about how we stopped off Monday with her marriage, how she married the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when he brought her to Medina, until her home was ready, because every wife of the Prophet had their own apartment, and their apartments were attached to the masjid. Her apartment was being built. They built them. So while her home was being built, she stayed with Ibn Harith. And after her apartment was ready, that's when she moved into the new home for her. And as soon as she moved into her own home, that's where she became victim to the competition and the jealousy that existed between his other wives. And this is detailed in Malik's Muwatta, also in Bukhari. But Muwatta goes into great detail about it. As Imam Malik has in his Muwatta, on one side, the Prophet's wives, as I told you guys, were divided into two parties. The first party consisted of Aisha and Hafsa, radiallahu anha. They were their own team. And all the other wives were on the opposite team, supported by his daughter Fatima. So you had two groups, Aisha and Hafsa. They were known as the two troublemakers. They were the ones that kept all the fitna going. And then you had Zainab, Salama, Juwayriya, and now Safiyyah, and also Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet. So those five women stood together against these two. And when Safiyyah married the Prophet, she was placed in the middle of this. And nobody accepted her. They all, even though the two groups never got along, they band together against her. All of them except for Salama. Remember, guys, Salama basically stayed to herself because of that supplication that the Prophet made. She didn't get involved in none of this drama. Plus, the other wives were scared of her. Salama was like Khalid bin Walid. He was her cousin, her first cousin. Salama they all feared her, even the men. because she was the lioness of Allah. She could work that sword and a knife. She could be an assassin if she wanted to. So nobody bothered Salam. But Safiyyah tried to hold her position between the two groups of wives. And she tried to get along with them. But no matter how she tried to get close to them, they would all pressure her. They would all speak badly to her. And they would speak badly about her because she was a Jew. And not just any Jew. She was the daughter of the biggest enemy against the Muslims other than Abu Jahl and them. Her father was the leader of that tribe. And he hated the prophet. He swore that he would fight against him. So all the horrific betrayal and things that her tribe did, the people held them over her. And this is why the prophet came up with all these sayings. Stop holding grudges. That's why the prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever holds a grudge against another Muslim will be denied paradise. He used to tell them, this is my wife. I don't care what her father did. I don't care what her brother did. I don't care what her uncle did. I don't care what her people did. She's a Muslim. He used to tell the people she believes in Allah. We don't trust her, O prophet. They would just tell him, we don't trust her. How could she be sincere when you killed her father? You killed her brother. You killed her uncle. Those Jews have betrayed us over and over again. How do we know that she's not going to stab you in your sleep? This is what he had to deal with. So that's when he started saying, we got to set aside that personal hatred. And that's when Allah sent down the verses of the Quran saying, do not allow your hatred against the people cause you to be unjust to yourselves. Safiyyah was a Muslim. Allah tried to speak on her behalf with that. The prophet spoke, but the Arabs, just like today, some of us become so caught up in our hate that we can't let go. We'll damn you forever, your whole family. Well, I'll kill your babies. That mentality, that's the mentality that the Arabs had. And a lot of them still have today. That's why the prophet said we got to let go of that negative energy, that hatred. Learn to love for the sake of Allah. The person you hate may become Muslim like she did. Yeah, she's the daughter of a king, but she's Muslim and she's my wife. This is how her every day of her marriage was spent this way. Even after the prophet's death, it was worse. Okay. In Bukhari, Imam Bukhari puts in his Sahih how one day Safiyyah just couldn't take it no more. All the wives teaming up against her. They all teaming up, calling her names. One day, she got so upset because Aisha and Hafsa told her, don't you dare refer to yourself as being on our level. They said, we are from the Quraysh. And remember, all the prophet's wives were from the Quraysh. Aisha, Hafsa, Zainab, his cousin, Juwayriya. They were all Quraysh. They were all Arabs, and they were all from the same tribe. Sauda too. Sauda was from the tribe of the Quraysh too. So Aisha and Hafsa told her, don't you dare think you are on the same level with us, because we are all from the Quraysh. And because we're from the Quraysh, we're closer to the prophet than you can ever be. You'll always be a Jew. You will never be nothing but that. And when Aisha said that, Zainab and them were in agreement. So this hurt her. This hurt her so bad. This is in Bukhari. that when the prophet came to check on her that day, because again, he made rounds every night after Asr. When he came to her apartment and he asked her, why are you sad? She told them what Aisha and Hafsa said. And the prophet said, oh, Safiyyah, why didn't you answer them back? Why didn't you ask them, how can they be better than you when your husband is a prophet, your father was a prophet, and your uncle was a prophet? He said, you're better than all of them because you're married to me, a prophet. Your father was Aaron, a prophet, and your uncle was Moses. They'll never be like you. And he told her, go back and tell them that. This is when they found out. Because remember, they never knew that. Remember, the Arabs could not understand why the prophet married her. They didn't understand it. They said, just take her as a right-hand possession. Make her your slave. Why are you marrying her? She's a Jew. The prophet married her because he knew that she was the daughter of a prophet. And what did he tell her? He said, it is not fitting for the daughter of a prophet to be a slave to anyone. He said, I'm asking you to marry me. And that's when she recognized he was a prophet, because only the prophet would know what she was. But she never told anybody. Safiyyah was so humble. She never told anybody of her background. So this is when the prophet said, you go back and tell Aisha and Hafsa and all the rest of them that. The next day, when she left her home and they were teasing her, she turned around and told them, I'm better than you. She said, do you know who I am? She said, I am the granddaughter of Harun. She said, my uncle was Moses. She said, and I'm married to the Prophet Muhammad. She said, you're right, Aisha. I'll never be on y'all's level because you're just Quraysh. I am the daughter of a prophet married to one. They shut up. That hurt them. Aisha says that she was so shocked. She asked the prophet, is it true? And the prophet told Aisha, yes, she is. So have some humility, Aisha. Watch how you talk to her, Aisha. She's your sister in faith. Let go of your hatred of her people. Okay? Wonderful. Sad story there. So when the prophets, when this kind of made it a little bit easier for Safiyyah, because the word got around then. That's when the gossip went out and they said, oh, she ain't just a Jew. She's a descendant of Moses, alayhi salam. So now the people understood why the prophet married her. Okay. And it also shows how protective our prophet was. He loved all his wives. A lot of people think he only had love for Aisha. That's not true. The love of his life was Khadijah, radiyallahu anha. Okay, he loved Aisha, but he had deep, strong affection for every one of his wives. And he made sure that every one of them was treated with dignity and respect. He didn't favor Aisha over anyone. He admonished her more than anyone else because she was young and immature. Okay, every one of his wives felt special and loved, including Safiyyah. So during her marriage to the prophet, which wasn't long, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam continued to stretch his protective wings over her all the way up until the day he died. And Safiyyah loved him. She loved him with her heart and her soul. But again, even on the day that he died, that didn't stop the bantering of his other wives and their jealousy of her, their hatred for her. They just hated her because she was a Jew. Okay? And they hated her even more, knowing that she was better than them because she was the daughter of a prophet. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So on his deathbed, when all the wives were gathered around him, and you will find this hadith in Bukhari, Muslim, and Muwatta. All the wives were gathered around him during his final illness. Safiyyah, she knew that he had been her protector this short time, and she wondered what would happen to her after he was gone. And then she saw him laying there suffering. She began to cry. And she said, "O Prophet of Allah, I swear by Allah that I wish that the pain you're experiencing would leave you and come to me. I wished I could trade places with you. I wish it would be me in this bed dying and not you." Because she was wondering, what am I going to do when I lose my beautiful, protective husband? She said, "I wished I could trade places with you." When she made that statement, all the other wives began to gesture to one another. They began to roll their eyes and they began to whisper under their breaths to each other. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was laying in his bed. He looked at them. He said, "Clean out your mouth." He yelled it, even though he was sick, in pain. He said, "Clean out your mouth." And the other wives were shocked. They said, "Why, O Prophet of Allah?" And the prophets told them, "You are gossiping about your sister. You are gossiping about your friend. And I swear by Allah that she's sincere, that she's telling the truth. If she could switch places with me, she would." So here you can see, this is right before he died. One of his final words were to admonish the other women about how they're treating her. Subhanallah. Okay? Safiyyah, she was the daughter of one of the leading Jews, and she was a means for the Khaybar Jews to become closer to the Muslims. The prophet married her not just because she was the daughter of a prophet, but also he knew marrying her would cause many of her people to convert to Islam. And they did. Many of her people converted to Islam. And Safiyyah kept a close relationship to them after her marriage to the prophet. She used to go and visit with them. She would give to the poor. And she became a representative to the Jewish women as to how to find happiness with their spouse. Remember, I told you these were the dark ages. This was the medieval dark ages. The Jewish people believed that women were not human. Remember, guys, the Jews, when a woman got on her period, they would make her live in a barn. The men didn't treat their wives with respect. So one of the things that Safiyyah did, she would go to them, visit with them, and give dawah to the women. The same way my dawah is designed for you sisters here. She would go and talk to the women and tell them about the rights that we have, that Allah gave us. How we're not animals. How we're not unclean. How we do have a brain. And as a result of that, many of her people did embrace Islam. And that's what she did during her marriage, going to the people, helping them, and giving dawah to the women. But of course, what did the Arabs do? This led to slander. They used to slander her to the prophet. They used to go to the prophet and say, "Oh, we think your wife is spending too much time with the Jews of Khaybar. Perhaps she's plotting and planning against you. They never trusted her. After he died, it got worse. If she would go visit any of her relatives, very few, and let me tell her, this was a question somebody asked me. Safiyyah's immediate family, they were sticklers to their religion. Very few of her immediate relatives converted to Islam. They were sticklers to their Torah. They were sticklers to their belief system. Okay? And Safiyyah never had any children. Her first two marriages, you know, the first marriage, she was divorced. The second one, her husband was killed on the battlefield during Khaybar. So she didn't have any kids. She was very close to her nephew. Okay. I think they say he ended up converting. One of her nephew who she was close to, he ended up converting to Islam later. Okay. But during the Prophet's time, she was by herself. Her family were sticklers to their religion, but she was given dawah. A lot of the people did convert. After his death, she continued to go check on her family. The people continued to slander her, but the difference was the Prophet wasn't living. He wasn't there to protect her anymore. So during the caliphate of Abu Bakr, she was slandered horribly. She was teased, picked at horribly. But a change came during the caliphate of Umar. When Umar was the caliph, let me share with you guys what happened here. One day, during the caliphate of Umar, one of Safiyyah's slaves went to him and told him, "O Amir of the believers, I want you to know that every Saturday, Safiyyah goes and visits her family. She's a Jew. Every Saturday, she's over there doing the Sabbath with her family. She's a traitor. She's just pretending to be Muslim." This slave was hoping that Umar would kill her or something, believe that she's a Jew and treacherous. But Umar was an intelligent man. And so what Umar did was he sent one of his right-hand men to go investigate and see what Safiyyah's doing on Saturdays. So the man did. And then Safiyyah was brought before Umar. And Umar asked her, "Safiyyah, why are you over there with the Jews on Saturdays? Are you celebrating the Sabbath?" He said, "Your slave woman has come to me and told me that you still practice the religion of Judaism." She looked at Umar and she said, "O leader of the believers, you asked me about Saturdays." She said, "Ever since Allah has blessed me with Fridays," she said, "I have never loved any other day but Friday." She said, "But when it comes to your question about the Jews, you have to remember I am related to them. They are my people, and I am maintaining my ties with them." She said, "Allah commands us to maintain the ties of kinship." She said, "So I gather with them on Saturdays, and I give them dawah, and I maintain my ties." Umar said, "O Safiyyah, mother of the believers," he said, "I apologize for putting you through this." And then Safiyyah went home. And when she went home, she asked her slave girl, she said, "Why did you slander me? Why did you accuse me of practicing Judaism?" And the slave girl said, "The devil made me say that. The devil made me do it." Safiyyah looked at the slave and said, "Go, I give you your freedom." So she just let her go. But this is an example as to the fitna she had to deal with. Even after the Prophet's death, nobody would trust her or accept her. This is what happens when we start holding grudges. However, during the caliphate of Umar, something else great happened. This is when Aisha, radiallahu anha, reached her womanhood maturity. During the caliphate of Umar, Aisha used to watch how the people treated Safiyyah. And Umar shared with Aisha what that slave girl, how that slave girl slandered her. So Aisha began to reach out to Safiyyah. And Aisha and Safiyyah became good friends. So that's something good. She finally had a friend. She finally had another one of her co-wives to look beyond the fact that she was a Jew. In fact, they became so close that Aisha said to her, please forgive me. Forgive me for all the evil I did to you when we were married. And Safiyyah kissed Aisha's cheek and said, we're just women and you were just young. She said, don't you know, Aisha, I could never hold a grudge against you. She said, our husband, the prophet taught us that. And they became best friends. And that's the good thing. This was during the caliphate of Umar. Her and Aisha finally close. So she had one person to have her back, and this paid off. Let's continue. This paid off. Safiyyah, radiallahu anha, she was a mature woman, and she was very kind. And as Aisha herself tells us in a hadith in Muwatta, she said she never met a woman of such great morality as Safiyyah. She said, you can remember when she first saw her, when after the prophet did the battle of Khaybar, remember Aisha was with him. When she saw Bilal dragging Safiyyah before the prophet, she said there was something about Safiyyah that made her different. She never understood what it was. But now in her later years, she did understand. She had the same good morality, the same good character that the prophet Muhammad had, that Aaron had, that Moses had, that Abraham had. She was a descendant of them. She was so sweet, so kind. She never held a grudge. She held her head up despite what people did. And Aisha said you could tell she was the daughter of a prophet. She said because she knew there's no way that she could have withstood the drama that Safiyyah was. Only a daughter of a prophet could have withstood all that. So that's what Aisha recognized and made her different. She had the same morality that all the prophets had. Subhanallah. She was intelligent and she had no patience for injustice. Now, remember, after the caliphate of Umar, who took over? Uthman. During the caliphate of Uthman, this is when all the fitna occurred. At this point, Aisha and Safiyyah were best friends. They were best friends. They were best friends. When all that fitna happened with Uthman, when the Muslims locked him up and in his house before they killed him, they denied anyone to bring him food. They denied anyone to visit Uthman. It was Safiyyah. Safiyyah, let's talk about her. She was on Uthman's side and she would help him. And when they locked him up, her nephew tells us, he says, Safiyyah, my aunt, she got on a mule and she went to the rebels to defend Uthman. And when she went there, she met with Ashtar. Ashtar, not knowing who she was, punched the mule in the face. Safiyyah then turned to me and said, protect me. Do not allow these rebels to humiliate me. And then she went back home. And what she did was she made a secret path between her house and Uthman's. And she put a plank between it. And she would sneak food and water to him. That's how courageous he was. So while Uthman was made a prisoner in his own home before they killed him, they weren't allowing any food to him, no water to him. It was Safiyyah who put a plank to connect her house to his, and she would go at night. She would wait to nighttime and walk across that plank. And look how smart she was. She went from above because the rebels were on guard at the bottom. They didn't see her on top walking across that plank to take Uthman and his family food. That's how courageous she was. That's the daughter of a prophet. Subhanallah, subhanallah. And also, guys, during this time, when Uthman was murdered and the rebels would not even allow him to be buried, it was Safiyyah who went begging the rebels to allow her and the Muslims to bury him, and they refused her. Okay? And also, when Aisha, who was her best friend, they killed Uthman while Aisha was away making Hajj. When Aisha came back from Hajj and decided that she was going to avenge the murder of Uthman, guess who was the first one to mount up? It wasn't Hafsa, Safiyyah. Safiyyah had her mule and she was ready. She said, I'm going with you, sister. We're going to get revenge. And then Hafsa came. Ibn Umar told Hafsa, you're not going anywhere. He said, I can't stop Aisha because she got her brothers with her. He said, but I'm your brother. You ain't going nowhere. And Safiyyah told Ibn Umar, I have no brothers. I have no male mahram to stop me. I'm riding with my sister. And Ibn Umar told Safiyyah, I'm your brother in faith and you ain't going nowhere either. But that shows how she was courageous. And it also shows what a good bond her and Aisha had made at that time. They were friends. And she cried. They say all the wives followed Aisha to the outskirts, right before the outskirts of Medina. And when all the wives were, even Salah, they all were with her. But they weren't allowed to go further. They say Safiyyah cried the hardest. When they saw Aisha go off on her own, they say Safiyyah cried the hardest because that was her friend. Subhanallah. So that's a good thing. Remember, guys, when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had married Safiyyah, he gave her a camel load of dates and he gave her 20 camel loads of wheat, like he had did his other wives. And remember, after he died, Umar would give all the wives except Aisha. He gave her more, but he gave Safiyyah and all the wives 10,000 dirhams. So Safiyyah, she saved up a lot of her money and even at her death, this is what's so bad. Even at her death, the Arabs still tried to discredit her. Even when she died, they didn't want to give her her rights and abuse her. So when Safiyyah died, she died in the 50th or the 52nd year after the migration. And she left behind a field of land, a field worth 100,000 dirhams. That's what she had saved up. And she gave 1/3. She put in her will that 1/3 of her estate was to be given to her sister's son, the one I just talked about. He wasn't Muslim at the time. The people began to protest because her nephew was still a Jew. They refused to go by the wishes of her will. It was Aisha, radiallahu anha, who came to her defense. Aisha said, "Where have you people been in your knowledge?" The prophet, my husband, said, "Anyone can will up to 1/3 of their estate to whoever or whatever they want." So she left 1/3 of her estate to her Jewish cousin. He will receive his money. And this was during the Caliphate of Muawiyah. Okay. And Muawiyah was very close with Aisha, as you all know. And so was his sons, because they were together avenging the murder of Uthman. So Aisha came to her defense at her death, because if Aisha had not spoken up, they would not have given her nephew that 1/3 of her estate. Because again, she didn't have any children. Most of her relatives were Jewish. She didn't have that many, hardly any Muslim relatives. Okay, her people converted, but not anyone close to her. So her nephew received 30,000 dirhams. Okay. When she was living, she gave her entire house away in charity, but she left that field, for her nephew. And inshallah, Safiyyah married the prophet when she was 17. We also have some hadiths that say she married him when she was 25. And this is what I was telling somebody. Allah kept the exact ages, the exact births of the companions and the prophet hidden, so we wouldn't do what the Jews and Christians did, celebrating their birthdays. That's why you're not going to ever find any hadith that tells you exactly for sure when the prophet was born, or Abu Bakr, or any of these wives. This is how Allah keeps us from doing what you Muslims are doing anyway, celebrating birthdays. But I went through all the hadiths. The ones that I go with is that she was 17, because Bukhari has the age of 17. There's a couple that says she might be 25, but there's more companions that say she was 17 when she married the prophet. So she was only married to him for 5 years, because he died 5 years after that. So as you can see, she wasn't married to him long. She was only married to him for 5 years. Okay. She died during the Caliphate of Muawiyah, and Muawiyah buried her in the graveyard with the other wives. And can you guys believe, even then, there were some of the Mu'tazila, the Kharijites. The Kharijites were petitioning against her being buried in the Muslim graveyard. They wanted her to be buried in the Jewish graveyard. Can y'all believe it? Even after her death. But alhamdulillah, Muawiyah had her buried with right next to the other wives of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay. Safiyyah, radiallahu anha, she reported 10 hadiths. You can find one of them in Bukhari, another one in Muslim, and the rest of them can be found in Muwatta and the other Sitta. So there's many lessons that we can learn from this wonderful story of Safiyyah. Number one, she heard about Islam when she was a kid. And even though her tribe and family hated the Prophet Muhammad, she never did. She always, was curious about him. She always wanted to get to know him. And that's why she converted to Islam. When her tribe lost that battle, and the Prophet took one look at her and told her that he knew she was the daughter of Aaron, she knew without a doubt that he was a messenger of Allah, and she agreed to marry him. and she cared about her people. Okay. Also, and she fell in love with the prophet, even though she lost her family members in that battle. The prophet was so caring with her, so considerate of her. He chose to speak with her instead of have sexual relations with her. He chose to spend their wedding night comforting her and not having sex with her. This made her fall in love with him. And he spent the rest of her marriage to him, protecting her. He protected her against Aisha, against Hafsa, against the other wives. He protected her against the other Muslims and what they said about him, about her. He spoke against holding grudges. He re-emphasized over and over again of how it doesn't matter what race a person is, what tribe a person is. We're all brothers and sisters. All of this from his marriage to her. Okay. So it's a good example as to how a man should protect his wife. It's the job of your husband to protect you from the pressure and problems around us. You brothers can learn from his marriage to her how you're supposed to be supportive of your wives, how you should come home and ask about their day. The prophet made those rounds. Aisha said mainly because of Safiyyah, mainly because of the bad way they used to treat her. He didn't show favoritism though, so he would visit every wife, but it was mostly because of her that he did that. He wanted to know, how was your day? Is anybody bothering you? This is something that I take to heart. Being that I am a female daya, a lot of people ask why I'm single. It's a lot of reasons why. Mainly because Allah said so. But that's something that I've never had. You know, I've always been committed to the dawah, you know, and I've always wished and longed for a man, a husband, to come to me and say, Layla, how was your day? How was your classes? Did the people attack you? You know, how did the people receive you? I've never had that. Instead, let me tell y'all what I've had was, you're too harsh. You're too mean. You need to stop the dawah. You need to do this. And you run the people with. I've only had that. I've never, ever had a man who was married to me to come to me like the prophet came to Safiyyah. How are you? And share your experience and compliment me. Good job. Wonderful lecture you gave, Layla. Oh, that was so powerful. It's nice how you can break these hadiths down. The prophet was very, you know, comforting to her. He was encouraging to her. You know, men today are brutes. They don't give us women what we need. Not even a woman like me of dawah. You know, I get married to somebody, they gonna break me. It's all about, you need to stop giving dawah. You too mean. Didn't the law tell me to be firm? Your voice is too loud. Didn't the law tell me to make my voice loud? You look too nice. Didn't the law say beauty belongs to him and we should emulate it? I've never had that and always wanted it. The prophet gave Safiyyah that. Subhanallah. What a wonderful man he was. Okay. Also, after becoming Muslim, Safiyyah gave importance to the ties of kinship. Even though her people were enemies to Islam, she didn't break the tie of kinship. Remember those hadiths where the prophet is speaking about, if you got family members who are opposed to Islam, we still give them their propers. You know, a lot of that was in regards to her and also Habiba. I'm going to do Habiba's story next week. Habiba had to deal with that too. Okay. But Safiyyah kept her ties of kinship. She didn't break them off. And she even thought of them when she was dying. And alhamdulillah, the fact that Aisha defended her, you know, this was a great thing too, to show how people can change. How when we get older in life, we should become wiser. Aisha matured during that caliphate of Umar. Okay. That's when she became friends with Safiyyah. And she became her defender. So people can change. Don't hold grudges. And also the fact that Safiyyah freed that slave, the slave that slandered her. She could have had Umar deal with her because that slave was not even Muslim. That slave was not even a Muslim. She could have had Umar deal with that slave, but instead she released her. You slandered me and you say the devil made you do it. I don't need you no more. Goodbye. Here's your freedom. She didn't seek vengeance like she could have. And also, again, when you guys read about her, you will see that some hadiths say she was 17, other hadiths say she was 27. You know, regardless, you know, this was a woman of dignity. This was a woman of humility. This was a woman of balance and respect. Okay. Finally, the biggest lesson that we walk away from with her story is that the religion of Islam has never been a religion that belongs to just one race, one tribe, or one class. Instead, Islam is for all people on earth, no matter what your religion, your past religion is, no matter what your race is, no matter what your culture is. We learn wala wal bara from her. We learn wala wal bara of what true allegiance is from her story. We learn to let go of personal grudges. We learn to put aside the past. Once a person declares la ilaha illallah, the slate has been cleaned. You learn this with her. Whatever happened in the past is the past. Guidance to Islam is determined by Allah. This is why the Prophet said, be careful how you treat people, because that person that you're treating bad may become your brother tomorrow. A lot of lessons learned from her wonderful story. All right, I'm going to stop right here. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. I hope you guys learn from her story. We can apply it today. What's going on in the world today with the Zionists? The Zionists, that's what they are. This is not the Jews. This is Zionism. Okay? The unreligious Jews. They're called Zionists. Israel are Zionists. America is a Zionist country. Okay? We can learn from how to deal with this. Don't go around damning a whole nation of people because of the sins of a few. Don't go around saying you hate the Jews. You know, just say the truth. I hate Zionists. I hate the Zionists and what the Zionists are doing to that part of the world, because they killing their own people too. The Zionists have no connection. All they want is the land. Zionists are nationalists. They want to conquer the earth. They want to be the supreme rule on earth. So they'll kill their own. They'll betray their own too, and they'll blame you like they're doing today, killing their own and blaming it on Hamas. Okay? That's Zionism. Don't allow your hatred to cause you to transgress the limits of Allah like these people did Safiyyah. Safiyyah was transgressed all the way even after her death. She would have been if Muawiyah and Aisha hadn't stopped it. Okay? All right. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Are there any questions or comments? And everything that I taught you today is not based on any book except for Bukhari, Muslim, Muwatta. What books am I using? I'm not using no book except the hadiths. I'm using Bukhari, Muslim, Muwatta. which is becoming abandoned. Okay, any questions or comments? Go ahead.
Just one thing, Laila. When you mentioned when the money was being distributed, you mentioned that they protested against it. You're not talking about the protests of today. You're talking about them speaking against.
Exactly. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
They didn't protest with no flags and signs and microphones. No. When I say protest, that means they objected. They slandered. What did they do back then, the Arabs? Slander and gossip. Well, that's wrong. We ain't doing that. We shouldn't do that. That's the protest I'm talking about, with their mouth. This is wrong. This is wrong. She can't lead nothing. That Jew ain't getting nothing. That Kafir ain't getting nothing. That's what I meant by protest. With their tongue, slander, gossip. And when the gossip got to Aisha, she said, oh, heck, let me put an end to this. Aisha rose up and said, you people are ignorant. The prophet said you can leave 1/3 of your estate to whoever or whatever you want. Bam. And there it is. Good job. Thanks for checking that. Yeah, the Muslims didn't do protests like that. They protest with their tongues, but they didn't do what y'all doing today. I say let the non-Muslims protest. The non-Muslims will be heard. The non-Muslims will be looked at because the non-Muslims are their own people. Let their people do the protesting. We sit back and show the solidarity. That's what we should do. Show the solidarity in our dress, in our behavior, in our attitude. And fill those masjids up and make dua. Because like Mukhtar said, that's the weapon that they don't have. Like Umar said, when Umar would send his army out, he would remind them, we got one weapon that the Kafir don't have. They have more men than us. They have more weapons than us, but we got one weapon that they'll never have, and that is our dua. So we make dua and we come back to al-wala. We dress like Muslims. We're showing solidarity in our dress, our behavior. Let the Kafirs do the protesting because they'll listen to their own. They ain't listening to us. And when they see that there's more of their people protesting, it'll make them think. Seeing you protest don't mean nothing. It just turns into a fight. That's all we see is fighting everywhere. And a couple of people got shot today too, I heard. Who got shot? They say somebody got popped here in America, another riot. 2 people got popped today. What's up with this? Pop, pop.